All right, guys. Well, it's 9 o'clock. This is Alex Skandalis. We'll get rolling here. Try to keep this kind of as brief as possible while still covering kind of the major things that we've got to cover here in terms of getting ready for the upcoming tournament here. Just ask if you are doing something else or there's noise in the background, please just make sure you mute your phone for me. If not, I'll mute it for you, but it'd be really helpful if you could do that for me. So I wanted to start by just thanking everybody on the call who was a part of RussMatt 2019. I would say it was a wild success. Really enjoyed my time personally down there. I know I speak for Chris and Danny when I say that we all enjoyed getting to meet all of you and be a part of something new down in Florida as the season started in 2019. And, a lot of our goals are still the same in 2020, just trying to improve that quality of umpiring, working with high-character people who want to become better umpires and get some work in before their season starts, up north or sometimes in another venue. So I wanted to thank you kind of all for that and, move on to 2020 here. Communication is key in everything that we do. We've tried to communicate with you as best as we can. As all of you know, there's so many moving parts here. But when you do communicate, please via email, use alex@umpires.org. I know in the past we've had a RussMatt email address. It's okay to copy that address, but use alex@umpires.org in the immediate. If we get into a situation where someone else is kind of manning up a day, we'll certainly send out an email with who the contact might be. If you do have to call me or call Chris or call Danny, please leave us a message. Let us know exactly what you need. Don't just say, call me back. If you can, please avoid the whole texting realm, Facebook messaging. Just avoid all that stuff. That's how messages get lost in the long run. As a lot of you know, we are out of Osceola County this year. I think they made those into soccer fields. So we're going to be predominantly at Lake Myrtle and Chain of Lakes. We do have a few new sites, which some of you guys have seen on your schedules. Just make sure you're Google mapping those locations, to ensure that what the address is in Arbiter is actually where you're going. And we will send out a document here in the next few days just giving you the exact addresses for some of those places. As far as locker room availability, I think Lake Myrtle and Chain of Lakes are pretty simple. Chain of Lakes, there is a locker room off of field number 1. It's a pretty big field house type area. There's a lot of lockers, a lot of space to spread out. And at Lake Myrtle, we have 2 locker rooms, one in the upper quad and then one in the lower quad, which services the lower field and the main field. So we would ask that, if you're at Lake Myrtle or Chain of Lakes, please make sure you're changing in the locker room. If you are in a place where you wind up in a parking lot, just kind of park away from people, take care of your business, and move on. Predominantly we're at Lake Myrtle and Chain of Lakes, so a lot of that doesn't come into play. But if you do have to change out of your car, please just make sure that you're in a spot away from people and things like that. As far as housing, kind of same situation as last year with a couple improvements, I think. Check in and check out and take care of your business in terms of that $20 a night, whether it be to Brian directly or to whoever he designates as kind of the money collector at your house. We'll take 2 forms of payment there, a check written to RussMatt LLC, or, we'll also take cash. Please don't mail checks. And remember, we need you to pay before. We had a couple of people kind of lagging a little bit. We wound up taking it out of checks on the back end. That's really a tough situation for us. So please make sure that you have that paid up before you check in. Just remember, these are other people's homes for the most part. Treat them that way. You guys are responsible for damage and mess, and kind of there is no maid service. Codes will be sent here in the next couple days, and the biggest thing that I will say is, from what I've seen, and we'll get the final out to you here shortly, there are many, many, many less moves than there were in the past. So that's a good thing. Some of you guys who are staying upwards of 20 days may find that, there's a move here or there for you. So, but just be conscious of when you got to be in, when you got to be out, and things of that nature. On and off the field, this is a non-rules change year for the NCAA. I'll get into the couple changes we do have, but just remember, we need to be enforcing all of our 2020 protocols and then also all of the 19 rule changes that we had. Specific RussMatt rules are listed on their website. There really isn't anything on there that's out of the ordinary from the regular rule book. It just reemphasizes a few points in terms of the home team providing baseballs and things of that nature. I will clarify the 10-run rule for you guys very quickly. There's no 10-run rule in a 7-inning game. There is a 10-run rule in a 9-inning game when a game follows your game. So if any game is following you, we're using the 10-run rule in that 9-inning game. If there's no game following you, coaches have the option to use the 10-run rule. The options are not used. Okay, so just in general with that 10-run rule, just to very clearly define it and not create a situation where anyone thinks we're getting to a spot where we're trying to shorten a game. If there's no game following it, let's just always make it a habit to ask. So we know that it's not mandated at that point, but just so everyone's doing the same thing, if you have a 9-inning game with no game following it, we are going to ask the question at the plate meeting. Coaches don't like that in general, but if we're doing it every game, that can always be our answer to them. So that's the way I would like that handled. If you do have a protest during a game, we will handle that protest before the next pitch. So if a protest comes up of a rule interpretation that you're taking, we're going to stop the game. You're going to find whoever's on that quad, whether it be Chris or Danny or I or Rob Sitz or anyone else that they may have there, and we're going to get a rule interpretation for you right there. So just remember, not kind of the same way we'd handle it back home where we would take it and continue. We'll actually handle that right there so we don't ever have to come back and replay a game or anything like that. We just get it fixed for everybody. On the field, guys, we're partners. We're going to do the best we can to work together and get a fair outcome for that game. I know a lot of us will be working together for the first time. Some of us will be working together for the millionth time. But communicate with your partners. Remember, you're a team out there. You're representing United, RussMatt, yourselves, your associations that you come from. So just remember all that. And that kind of spills over to off the field as well. You're representing all those people. So whatever you're choosing to do outside of the ballpark, please remember that. Obviously, the houses are not like a frat party. I think at this point we've got a pretty solid group, and we've got some pretty solid house leaders that if any of that stuff becomes an issue, it gets quashed pretty fast. So don't expect any issues there going into 2020. We're going to get some hot days. You guys know that. A lot of you are coming from areas that are in the 20s, teens, whatever, and just make sure you continue to hydrate yourselves. At the main sites there, we will continue to provide water. There'll be some sort of cooler or jug in there that can be filled in the snack stand with ice. If you take a water, stick another one in the ice so the next guy has a cold one. Just be conscious there of making sure we always have water available that's cold. There's nothing worse than coming off the field and drinking a warm water. And obviously, doesn't have to be said, but, don't put us in a position where conduct off the field is going to cause anyone to have to be sent home. We did send a couple guys home in 2019, but I don't anticipate any of those problems, especially now as we move on to a more core group of umpires and guys that have been with us for a year now and have been with us for several years at United. So just remember, we're judged on and off the field as umpires. Let common sense kind of guide you in everything that you do with interpreting a rule or dealing with a staff member of RussMatt or dealing with a coach. Just, kind of the golden rule, just treat people how you'd like to be treated. I think we all know that, and that goes without saying. For help with kind of scheduling, I would ask that everybody please make contact with your partner the night before to confirm your game time, your field location, what uniform you're wearing, if you have a locker room, where you're parking, all that kind of good stuff. And we did have one instance last year where famously I had to go on the field at the last second. That wasn't a pretty sight for anybody. And I think we could have maybe avoided that if we realized that the umpire who was supposed to be on that game never checked into housing the night before. So not asking you guys to babysit anybody, but if you happen to notice that someone's missing from housing the day they're supposed to arrive, let Brian know, let me know, Danny, Chris, let all of us know, because he's not there at midnight, probably not going to be there for his 9 a.m. game. So especially if he's coming from Iowa or Wisconsin or New Jersey or one of those places. So if you notice anything like that, please let us know. And make sure you're double-checking your arbiter schedule kind of with the RussMatt schedule that's out there on the internet. If you see any discrepancies, let us know. Chris and I are pretty much proving that schedule twice a day, so we don't anticipate a lot of issues in that regard. But we need to work together because obviously we never want to have a situation where there's, two teams and no umpires. So we'll address that as needed. It wasn't an issue last year, and I think that's a tribute to you guys making sure that everything was confirmed and all of us doing our part, from RussMatt through the umpires through the coordinators. As the same as last year, we really leave plate and base assignments up to you guys. Be the guy who takes the plate, be the guy who's considerate of maybe that very occasional instance where someone has 3 games in a day. But certainly talk to whomever you're working with, especially if you're an umpire that's switching partners a lot. I know some of us work with the same people a lot. Some of us are working with a lot of different guys over a 20-day period. So continue to talk to each other and figure out, who's had it light, who had 1 game the day before, and maybe can strap it on and things like that. And just be mindful and considerate of each other. Not as much as last year, but there still will be some split 7-inning doubleheaders. So somebody might have the front end of a double and another crew might have the back end, just based on scheduling. So just be aware of that, and you'll pick that up quickly on the RussMatt site when you're confirming things. You'll realize, like, oh, my game's the second game of a double 7. So just keep that in mind. I'm not so crazy about dress to and from the field. I mean, for me, like, it's Florida. You want to wear shorts and a polo shirt or a golf shirt. If you want to wear shorts with a nice shirt that doesn't have a collar, just don't show up to the locker room in a muscle shirt and gym shorts. But other than that, just kind of keep it professional. And I think one thing that we really do ask is don't have any of your uniform around if you have, or don't have any of it on if you're around the grounds for whatever reason. If you have a break between games or you're in a situation where there's a rain delay, you have a uniform on, try to stay in that locker room, otherwise kind of be in street clothes. This one's really important. I think I mentioned it in my email. Be mindful of picking up only your uniforms. I would say on the black United hat, if you can get a silver Sharpie and stick your initials in there and maybe put your initials in the waistband of your pants or on the tag of your shirt, that's a good way for us to be able to correct any issues. So, but please don't pick up anyone else's uniforms. Certainly not on purpose, and try to avoid doing it by accident. We are asking that you arrive 1 hour before game time. That's never really an issue. At Lake Myrtle especially, I know on most days, we are going to try, like we did at the end last year, to actually have a radio in the locker room so that someone can come over the radio and give a game time, give a delay time, whatever it may be, so that the umpires aren't in that inevitable situation of, walking around trying to figure out the game time, this and that. Certainly if you're working a true doubleheader, feel free to talk to the two coaches between games, get that start time, whether it be your game or someone else's, so you can just pass it along. But we will use the radios to try to help with that, especially at Lake Myrtle. And obviously it goes without saying, there are a lot of people on those radios. We're going to try to be on them as little as we can. And, we shouldn't have any screwing around in those radios, please. In terms of, getting to the locker room, have your pregame with whoever your partner is. And I just want to highlight 4 things here related to 2020. It's a non-change year, but we do have 2 things that were listed in the rule book from last year that go in effect this year, and we have this timing rule that was added on us. So those are kind of the 3 new things, and I'll touch on each of those individually here. But I will start by saying, just remember, we're still recording our conferences as diligently as we did in 2019. It was certainly a point of emphasis. Let's just make sure we keep doing that. We would like to have a second recording of conferences on the field. So most of our games are 2-man, and if the base guy can have a pen and a little piece of scrap paper to write some things down too, that's great. The 3 changes here for 2020. I'll start with wristbands. Obviously, we're seeing this, influx of everybody having a wristband in college baseball, so they can call signs by number or by state or whatever everybody's doing these days, and they look down at their card and this and that. I guess what it's come up is what can the pitcher do? Can the pitcher have a wristband? And so this is a little bit of a departure from what we've seen in the past. And they've stated that a pitcher can have a wristband. That wristband has to be dark in color, and it has to be worn on the glove hand. So it should be very close to right above the top of the glove wrist line, so it almost looks like one piece but isn't one piece. And most of those wristbands have a shiny part of them where you can actually see the sheet. And if it's a pitcher, that part should be kind of wrist down so that the batter doesn't pick up a reflection. And then on the throwing hand, we're under the same rule we always have been. So, no wristbands, no sweatbands, no nothing like that. In 2020, we've moved to a rule where a bat cannot be predominantly white in color. So what that means is, from where Chris and Danny and I sit, the idea of this is not for an umpire to have to be the judge of whether a bat is white in color. So what the NCAA has done is produce two lists. And the first list is the list of, I don't even know how long it is. It's probably 3,000 bats that meet the BD Corps and NCAA standards. That's 1 million pages long. We don't expect you guys to really have much to do with that. But there is a secondary list, which is a one-pager, which the NCAA has put out, and it's on the central hub. And it is the list of bats that do meet the BD Corps standard. However, they have been excluded because they are predominantly white in color. And so basically with the NCAA producing that list, we don't want you to judge whether it's white in color. If someone brings up a bat and says, is this bat legal because of the color, simply the plate umpire hopefully will have that one-pager in with his lineup card. We can check the bat and we can move on. Okay, so again, it's not up to our judgment as to whether it's white or not. At the end of the day, the NCAA has made standards. They've said what bats are going to be excluded, and we should follow that to the T. And again, it's just quick one-pager, print it out, put it with your lineup card, and be done with it. So the real fun one now, the new timing rule, 20 seconds between pitches here, even with runners on base. And basically, I will not rehash the entire rule for you guys. I assume through testing and things like that, you've all kind of mastered the ins and outs of that. But I do want to talk a little bit, and I think Chris will have some words here too, just on enforcement here. We're in a situation where 98% of our games are two-man, and that means that a base umpire, while having responsibility for the million other things that he has to worry about, also has to worry about this clock. And basically from where I sit as a Division III coordinator, I've instructed my guys that I do not want someone's head buried in the clock and missing a pickoff, missing a balk, missing another administrative duty that they have on the field. So we will not ignore any NCAA rules. We will do the best we can to keep that time and give warnings to the pitcher where appropriate, because every pitcher on every team gets one formal warning. And we'll do the best we can with it. And I urge you guys to use that warning if needed. I will say from the first weekend of the year here, I think we've seen that people are aware of it, and especially at the Division II, Division III JUCO levels, we're usually seeing a pitch at 12, 13 seconds. So please remember to read the rule again. Stepping off resets it, picking resets it, delivering the pitch, obviously kills the clock. So just remember to kind of have an idea of what's going on there. I think it's always really important when we do put in a new rule that when all these teams do go down to Florida, that they get some sort of a realistic look at how it's going to be enforced when they go back up north. The last thing we would want to do is kind of have the rule ignored completely, and then, they go back up north, now it starts getting called. So we're going to do our best with it, use our warnings. And, Chris, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, guys, everything Alex said, certainly we don't want you to miss any calls on the field, a balk or anything, because we're buried in this. But I think a lot of us, maybe some guys that do basketball, may have kind of an internal clock in their head. But I think we all have a pretty good feeling or sense when somebody is starting to go a little bit long. So, you know what? Those are the times we want to make sure that we're just taking a peek at that watch. Alex brought up a really good point. We were talking the other day, maybe not even have the rope on the watch, just keep in your hand. A crew that worked for me this past weekend, one of the crew members on the field did not reset his watch in between pitches. He just kept it running and had an idea of when it started, and obviously would add 20 seconds to that. So, there's some things we can do. I think one of the biggest things we want to think about out there is just being good communicators as umpires, both the plate umpire and the base umpire. As a base umpire, if you start to sense that pitcher's going long or you feel like it's long, well, communicate to him. Tell him to, hey, let's get moving here. You're getting close. kind of coach them through it like a lot of us have done probably in the past with balks or other situations like that. For plate umpires, let's make sure we get our batters in the box earlier and start that process a little bit quicker, much like we do at the beginning of each half inning. So let's get them close. Just certain things that I think that if we police the game on our own as umpires and communicate effectively, I think we can kind of coach these teams and players through it. One observation that I did notice in the last couple of weeks is, guys, a lot of us have gotten out of the habit of putting the ball back in play after foul balls. So we have to be aware that when the ball is back in play, pitcher has the ball on the mound and the batter's in the box, us putting the ball back in play starts the clock. So let's just something to think about in doing and starting that process. And, for us and all these Division III and II teams that are starting their season out, there's going to be some questions from coaches. There's going to be some situations where they're getting used to it just like we are. So if we can start out the RussMatt tournament enforcing this and helping them to get through it and to learn the rule, I think it's much better for all of us involved. So that's really all I have, Alex.
Cool. And then just handling situations, everyone just, remember the NCAA gives us a lot of tools to warn and keep people in games and make sure that they know they're approaching the line and tell them again. And this is how the NCAA kind of wants things handled. So, always think about how a report is going to read when you have to go ahead and write it. That's not to say if somebody calls you a blah, 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 that's not a grounds for immediate ejection, and we obviously support that. But use the tools the NCAA is giving you, and so that the report reads and writes to a coordinator, commissioner, whatever it may be, and you guys look like you're on the right side of it. I'm going to take a brief break from the procedural stuff just to, I know we have Rob President of RussMatt Baseball with us on the line, and I know he just wanted to say a few words here. So, Rob, the floor is yours.
All right, guys. I just wanted to, first off, excited to see you all and looking forward to another year of RussMatt and was very impressed with you guys last year and all the improvements I saw with the UCU guys running the show last year. So first off, thank you all for coming down. Second, I know probably already been addressed on this, but we did lose, unfortunately, Osceola County to now's soccer facility. So we lost those 6 fields that were there. So we're a little bit more spread out than we'd like to be. But next year we have 4 new fields definitely coming in, 4 new turf fields coming in, and Davenport, which is really close to where a lot of our teams stay and a lot of you guys stay as well. So that we're very excited about that for travel purposes and everything. And then probably most likely in 2022, we're going to have a brand new facility at Chain of Lakes as well. So with that being said, we're going to have a ton of games at Lake Myrtle. We're going to have a lot of games at Chain of Lakes this year as well, and Sanford Stadium, Pat Thomas, and then various high schools and Polk State and Henley Field and the area there as well. So anyways, we're going to be a little bit more spread out, but we're still going to have a lot of our games at Lake Myrtle and Chain of Lakes there. I think about 80 to 90% of our games will also be live streaming as well, which was a huge help when I'd get the call from a coach that it was the worst umpire call that they've ever seen in their whole life, and then you can show them on replay that actually you guys got it right, and so I think it helped with both ways on all of that as well. So we'll have all the fields at Chain of Lakes, all the fields at Lake Myrtle again this year, and they're working on a couple of the ancillary fields as well to get those ready in time for RussMatt. I know Alex has already addressed it. I think we've solved some of the housing issues that we had last year with guys moving as much as they had to move, and hopefully we got that in a much better place for this year. And I think that's all I've got to cover there. Alex, did I need to cover anything else there?
No, I think you got it all, Rob. We're all looking forward to seeing you here in a few days, and I guess I'll take the floor back unless you have anything else.
No, I mean, that's perfect. I do want to, I know we talked about doing some kind of get together for the umpires. We do need to get that on the schedule when we slow down a little bit, or before we get too busy there as well. I'd love to do something with all the guys as well to get to know everybody a little bit more as well.
Yeah, that's great. We'll see what kind of timing we have on that. I'm sure it's something we can certainly work in. And guys, Rob is this your third year, Rob? Is that what it is? Third year with RussMatt?
Third year running RussMatt.
So second year with us, and Rob is someone that our program has been friendly with, going back all the way to his playing days, and has always been a big supporter of umpires. Obviously, he's got a business to run too, so it can't always be the umpires are always right, but certainly one of the most fair people in terms of umpires, always willing to hear what we have to say, why we're doing what we're doing, and how can make the entire process better for everyone. So, Rob, thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you, I guess, in a couple days here.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right, so just jumping back in, I don't have a ton more here, but we did talk a little bit about ejections there for a second. And then besides the on-field part of it, now we move kind of the off-the-field part of it, and, how we've got to deal with things. It's always a little challenging at RussMatt because we could very easily have a team playing a 7 o'clock game being done at 10, and now they turn around and are playing at 10 a.m. the next morning. So it's really important at the conclusion of the game that there is a message on my phone or a direct phone call to me of an ejection. We have to get stuff filed the day of the game. So if it means that you've got to go back to the hotel or come to my room or whatever it is and get that report done, we've got to get it done, especially if there's suspensions involved, which, these days with the assistant coach and player mandatory suspensions, most of our ejections other than head coaches do carry a suspension, so we've got to get that stuff in and done. I will mention that the NAIA form is a little bit different. I think we'll lean on some of the guys who are registered with the NAIA to get a username and password so that we have the ability to file an NAIA ejection, and as that comes up, we'll deal with that. If there are suspensions that involve a significant write-up, and, I'm not talking about player turns around, calls you X, Y, and Z, and you throw them out, and that's a suspension. That's an easy one. You just check the box and move on. But if there's anything that's going to involve a more complicated write-up, Chris and Danny and I, we're here to help you with it, guys, with that stuff. So, if you have an issue where there's something complex, we want to be a part of helping you write that report, making sure that all our, T's are crossed and I's are dotted. So, certainly involve us with that. And on our end, as coordinators of RussMatt, we will also be involving the specific conference coordinator of the offending team. So, whoever's down from wherever, we may get in touch with a John Brower or a Darren Brown or whoever it may be. So they are aware of what's going on, and they're in the loop as well. Obviously, a lot of the teams that come down are Division III schools in the conferences that we coordinate, so that's an easy one. If there's anything that goes on that somebody's not leaving or something like that, certainly, feel free to use the site reps and Chris and I to get people away where they need to be and out of sight and sound. Payment will work very similarly to last year. We'll pay on Mondays. We will pay for the prior 7 days, and the first payment will be February 24th. So the first payment might be about 10 days. I know a lot of you guys are not down, so it's a small payroll. I think one time last year we pushed to Tuesday just because all the shit hit the storm all at one time. So I apologize for that. I will do my best to get it out on Mondays. And, if I do have to push to a Tuesday, I'll certainly send out an email so you're not wondering where it is. For those occasional rain situations, we'll have everybody kind of on a master email chain. Stay on top of your email when there's possible bad weather. Stay on top of Arbiter for changes, for things like that. Inevitably, there will be changes. Somebody will decide they're not going to come down. Games will be shifted, all that kind of good stuff. I won't mention any names. Stay near your phones when there's situations with rain. Use the radios at Lake Myrtle, all those kind of things. Again, just in that same vein of communication. If something comes up and you want to come off a game, or you need to make a switch, or you've got something going on, or you want to go to spring training, whatever it is, don't feel afraid to come to me. Okay, come to me and say, Alex, this is what I got going on. Do you have anybody working one game that might want to pick up my game or pick up a doubleheader? I'll work with you guys. There also may be times where I have to say, hey, it's March 7th, it's March 13th. These are our two busiest days in terms of games versus umpires we have here. And, we're kind of hamstrung a little bit. For the Florida collegiate guys that might be on the call, if you get games from Rob and Josh and it's an adequate amount of time, come to me. We want to see you guys do what you need to do to fulfill your obligations. We certainly will work with you if you'll work with us. One of the things I have to give Danny a lot of credit for last year was the RussMatt chatter section of kind of what we were doing, and on a daily or every other day or whatever it was, he was providing you guys with a lot of information. That was certainly something that was very helpful in year one as you guys got used to us and we got used to you. It's definitely something we want to continue. I don't think we're going to be doing it on a daily basis in the same way, but 2-3 times a week, certainly be on the lookout for that. It's on our website at unitedumpires.org, and then when it gets published, we do send out an email with the content and also the direction to the website. Recap of uniforms, UCU hat, and then everything else is blank. Just make sure you're matching. So if it's black, it's black. If it's light blue, it's light blue. And that also includes, I don't want to see somebody out there in the Columbia sky blue, whatever it is now, and then somebody else in that old light softball blue. To me, that's not a match. Just because they're both in the blue family doesn't mean they match, and that looks kind of silly. So make sure if it's black, you guys have the same black. If it's blue, you got the same blue. You want to wear navy, go for it. Whatever you want to wear, as long as it matches, I'm all for it. Like Rob said, we have the availability of Live Barn at probably 90% of our games here. That's a great tool. We will have passwords again to pass out to you guys, and we will try to grab some plays and do some stuff that we have typically done, which is voice over those plays in terms of mechanics, things like that. If you have something that you find to be of particular interest, certainly note it, note when it happened, and we'll try to pull it and go from there. The one really cool thing about Live Barn that I like better than every other video player on the planet is it actually goes by time of day. Instead of, when you go on ESPN and you've got to scrub through a 2-hour and 46-minute game and you're trying to figure out and the player doesn't move and all this kind of stuff, Live Barn is actually done by time of day. So if you happen to have a watch under your long sleeve shirt and jacket or whatever, and you know something interesting happened and you can write down 5:46 p.m., that'll be certainly a lot easier to find. If not, kind of take a mental note or write it down or whatever it may be. But we'll try to pull as many plays as we can at select times when it's a little less busy. You know, if you say, hey, Chris, come sit with me, I'd love to watch a little bit of my plate work and see what you think. You know, things like that we can do. You can sit with guys that you're working with and critique things. Obviously, any close plays you can go back and take a look at. We don't always have the best camera, but, you know, we have a pretty good camera for plays at the plate and looking at plate work and things of that nature. So use that. It's a tool that I guess we're getting more and more TV in college baseball, but it's a nice tool to be able to look at what you're doing out there. So that is really the end of my list here. I will, Danny, are you with us? I'll give you a second if anything you want to say.
I am, Alex. I just wanted to reiterate and kind of expand on what Alex just said regarding the live stream coverage at Chain of Lakes and Lake Myrtle. If anybody has any type of interesting play, and I guess the best way for me to explain it to you guys is use the criteria of the play that as soon as you get in the locker room, the entire crew is talking about. You're then sharing and discussing with the other umpires who are about to, you know, take the field. It's the naughty, unusual plays. It's the rule plays. It's the game management. Anything that really stands out, let's just make it very easy and just consistent message. If you have one of those plays, just email me. Email me directly. I can send this out in an email, but my address is dmiller@umpires.org. And just a brief, you know, note about what the play is, the date, the site, the field number, and like Alex just said, the time of day in live born coverage is very helpful. Last thing I wanted to say about this. As part of our training program, we do a lot on the wedge. Unfortunately, in two-man baseball, that doesn't come into play a lot, but it does with plays at the plate. Alex just cited the plays at the plate. And what we talk about as a group of instructors is that every play at the plate provides an opportunity to learn. So in addition to the naughty, unusual rules plays or anything like that, if you would, I think it would be really neat at the end of RussMatt if I was able to produce a video with all of the plays at the plate, and we can see the different ways that they were taken, the wedge application. I just think it would be a great opportunity for us to really extend the learning. And that is done through the help of all of you. Just simply, like I said earlier, let me know if you had a play at the plate, date, time, field location. And it's something that I'm really excited about that we will be able to produce. And I think that's all I have. Alex, you mentioned the RussMatt chatter. And like Alex said, that'll be back. It's just another way for us to provide consistent information to you guys. And if you guys have any suggestions of what else we can add, just let me know. And I guess also know that this will just be information coming from Alex, Chris, Rob, myself, and all of the other representatives of RussMatt. I'm already in Florida. I saw a couple guys today, and I will look forward to seeing all of you very soon.
Chris?
Hey, guys, one more thing I forgot to mention. We do have a new site director at Chain of Lakes. Bing Tyus is our site director there. He was a long-time Polk State Community College coach and an athletic director for a long time as well, so obviously very familiar with baseball and the background there. Also, we'll make sure that UCU at both Chain of Lakes and Lake Myrtle, a UCU umpire, whoever's in charge that day, will have a golf cart as well if something is needed there. You guys communicate on that. And I know you mentioned the walkie-talkies as well. We will make sure that we have a walkie-talkie in the umpire locker room at Chain of Lakes and at Lake Myrtle as well. So I'll make sure to that we have that so the communication could be a little better. And I was also thinking it's probably a good idea to post the schedule in each one of the locker rooms each day as well, so they can at the main sites. Obviously, when you're going to one of the fields, where there's only one field or whatever, it's a lot harder to do. But those Lake Myrtle and Chain of Lakes will be able to post the schedule, so it's easy for you to see, if I'm on field 3, if there's a game after or not. So.
Yeah, and also we post those in the golf cart. So if we miss a day in the locker room and I'm next to the locker room or whatever, you can always poke your head out and take a look on the inside dash of the golf carts, and the schedule's there too as well. Chris Marshall?
Yes, guys, I hope you guys are as excited about getting down there as I am. I've been lucky enough to be at a couple camps the last couple weekends and be on the field and be in some warmer weather. And I don't know about you guys, but just being on the field and being around it, I can't wait to get going. For the guys that were there last year, you guys know how visible Danny, Alex, and I were around. We're there to support you guys. We're there to help you in any way that we can, whether it's on the field, off the field, talking about umpiring plays. We're umpire groupies. We love this stuff, obviously, and we'll help and talk about anything we feel necessary, and anything you guys need from us, anything you want to talk about, we're going to be around. So I'm just looking forward to seeing all you guys and kicking this thing off.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for tonight. If you have any, I know I've had some emails back and forth on little date change here or there, something. Just certainly stay in touch, whatever it might be, and we will go from there.
Hey, Alex.
Alex? Yeah, sure. Yep.
This is Rex. Quick question for you.
Yep.
Parking passes, will you make those available for the Lake Myrtle complex?
Yeah, I actually
I can take care of that, Rex.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Danny will take care of it, and for the most part, you pull in and say, hey, I'm an umpire. I think we've been in pretty good shape there in the last year. So I took that off the agenda, but certainly Danny can take care of that and send it out to everyone again.
Yeah, my only other question. Go ahead.
Let me just address that real quick. We'll definitely get you parking passes, but please make sure you guys just slow down and, basically come to a complete stop, say hi to the ticket ladies, and say, hey, umpire. They're all very friendly. It just, once you roll by there fast or, going by there, the next car behind them, they, without a doubt, they always say, well, why did that person get to go right through? So just make sure you say, slow down, stop, say hello, and then move on. That would be greatly appreciated there.
Great. The other question I had was, is there a list of all the umpires that's going to be coming down with maybe a date range of when our fellow folks are going to be around that could be made available to us?
Let me think about that. I probably have something rough that I can send out. A couple dates may have changed here or there because I have my original spreadsheet that I worked off of, but it'll give you I think you're looking for a general idea. And
that's correct.
I can certainly, I can pass that along. It just kind of has the dates that were agreed upon at the beginning for an umpire coming down, and again, it might be off a day or two or a few days, but it'll generally give you that idea.
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Yep. All right, guys. I will say goodnight, and I look forward to seeing you all in Florida. Safe travels, and good luck for those of you who may sneak in a game before you get down there. Talk to you soon.